name the song. Sorry. 3 chords and the truth. This is Gloria by Them, band Them. It was Van Morrison's band. He wrote it like 1962. He was about 18 years old, and it was recorded. It recorded in 63 and released in 64, and it was the B-side of Baby Please Don't Go. And it went on to become a very famous song and covered by many bands. And this was early 60s, so it had a big impact. And it was like a white dude, Irish guy, imitating Howlin' Wolf, or some of the blues, I guess the Delta blues guys. And it's just those 3 chords, the E, the D, and the A, over and over again. I think that Van Morrison is one of the greatest songwriters ever, at least in this era of music that we're in. He had a very big influence. So tonight, what I would like to do is I want to go over the original version, and then we're going to talk about a couple other, how can we not talk about the Doors version? Another Morrison, Jim Morrison, born in the States, but obviously also of Irish descent. And then we got to talk about Bono and U2's Gloria as well, because even though they didn't cover Van Morrison's version, it was a little bit of a nod to that. And I want to also mention, which I might talk about later, you got to watch the recent interview on Stephen Colbert with Bono, where he talks about meeting Van Morrison and play, going on stage with him. And it's a very funny story. And I guess you could say, who's greater, Bono or Van Morrison? Obviously Bono, well, it's not clear. I guess you could look at the statistics in terms of records sold and everything. I'm sure many people would say Van Morrison is a better songwriter. But clearly Bono has had a huge impact, and U2 has had a huge impact. But they were of the next generation, you could say. So they're standing on the shoulders of giants. So let's talk about the song a little bit. I already covered this little series we're doing is called The Gospel of Rock. And one of the songs that we covered earlier was a song that preceded this one by Buddy Holly, Not Fade Away, which is also one of the great classics of the rock and roll era, and very fit for this little series that I'm doing, as this one is, because obviously this one is Gloria, and Van Morrison was riffing on the Christian liturgy, Gloria in Excelsis Deo, and he was aware of that. He was only 18 years old, and he was basically glorifying sex and woman, and even though the song is a very short song, he apparently, according to the Wikipedia article, he would when they played it in concert, it was like a 15 or 20-minute song sometimes, so he would just ad-lib lyrics, just like Jim Morrison does in the live version that became that I heard when I was growing up in the 80s. It came out in 83 on a Live She Cried. So I heard that version by The Doors. I think I heard that version first before the original Them version. Um, and so Van Morrison, in a way, makes it very clear he's talking about a woman. She's about 5'4", from her head to the ground, which Jim Morrison changes. He changes the lyrics. But I think Van Morrison wants to make it clear that he's talking about a woman, right? He's not just talking about, this is not like a metaphor for God. On the other hand, I don't know if he's excluding that possibility. It's not mutually exclusive. Why would it need to be? That's part of the thing, in our society is sex is, we tend to look at sex as being dirty and not somehow unclean. And one of the great things about this song, and also the Doors version, the Doors is, Jim Morrison's version, let's say, is very raunchy and very much more explicit. You have to listen to that version if you have not heard that version recently. She comes around here just about midnight. She makes me feel so good. I want to say she make me feel all right. Comes walking down my street. Watch her come to my house. She knocks upon my door and then she comes to my room. Then she makes me feel all right. Now, obviously, the Doors version came out in 83. It could not have been released. I don't think it could have been released earlier in the 60s. It wouldn't have gone over. Just like maybe in his live versions, Van Morrison might have been much more explicit, but in the recorded version, he is only hinting at what is taking place up in his room. Let's see. Now the U2 song came out in 81, and that was when U2 apparently was basically a Christian rock band. But even then Bono was hinting, and again he's tipping the hat to Gloria by Van Morrison. How could he not be? Van Morrison is one of the great Irish rock stars. And how can you write a song called Gloria and not reference in some way Van Morrison's song? In a sense, how many other Irish rock stars can you really say are up on that level as Bono and Van Morrison? In a way, it's between those two, and that's probably why Bono talked about Van Morrison on Colbert. It was very funny. You got to watch that. So the U2 song actually brings in the Latin, and I guess you'd have to listen to the U2 versions, the live versions, and maybe they do use the them version a little. I haven't listened, so I don't know. If you want to comment, please do. And let's see what else. I don't know if I have that much more to say. Patti Smith did a very famous version of it too. Jesus died for someone's sins, but not mine, is how it starts. It's actually it's Van Morrison's song with her own poetry. So it's an very interesting version as well. So I don't want to not forget that one. And there probably have been many, many others, very great ones as well. The Doors version, Jim Morrison, he's very, very funny. I think one of the things that I appreciate about Jim Morrison is the humor he brings. I think as a kid I didn't really know how facetious he was, but it's really very, very funny. From my perspective now, you can understand how he was really being facetious, but serious at the same time. And that's not something you hear that much in rock music. A lot of it is very, very. It comes across as serious. Just like all music, everything. And so if I had to, say my favorite and the most inspiring and influential artist for me has been Jim Morrison, or one of the most, probably the most. So I really appreciate what he did with the song, and he probably also heard Van Morrison do it live too, and he probably took some of what Van Morrison was doing live. And I know that they did meet back in the 60s, and they drank together, at least on one occasion. I don't know how many times they got together, but I would love to hear more about that. If you know anything more about that, please share. I don't have too much else to say. I think one of the things I wanted to point out is that Not Fade Away by Buddy Holly is the same three chords, just the E, the D, and the A. And I will bet you that Van Morrison was thinking also of Not Fade Away and other songs that were, around at that time that used those three chords. Probably, based on what Buddy Holly did. Probably if a musicologist probably could point out a whole bunch of different songs using just those three chords in that time period from, the late 50s through the mid 60s or even through the whole 60s. But it's the same three chords, and quite a different song in many ways, but they both rock, and they both really, you could say, are getting to the same thing. I would love to hear your thoughts, and that's about all I want to say right now. I will keep circling back to these songs. Gloria, well, let's say this. You can always understand the song as referencing itself. That the song is Gloria. The song is called Gloria, but the song is Gloria. What he's singing about is the music. And I think that is it on a deeper level, is the sound. If Gloria is salvation, then the song is salvation, and it's presenting it to you. Something to reflect on. I'm going to reflect on it too. But that's about it for right now. Thank you for listening, and we'll come back at a later date. Make a date. I'll call you, or I'll text you. All right. Gloria.